think it's recording. So, as far as the test goes, let me make these just a little bit bigger. As far as the test goes, there are 20 questions on the test. Some of those questions have multiple parts, most of them do not. Those questions are very similar to the review. In other words, if it isn't on the review, it isn't going to be on the test. The information you need to be able to do well on the test is here on the review. The stories change for the test and the numbers change. So don't expect it to be identical to this. The stories are going to be different. Your goal from this review is to understand how to do the test and know what words are going to be your cue for what to do for the test. So be able to do this and think to yourself, what is it that's telling me to do what I'm doing? Look for the keywords, identify what those keywords are, because those keywords are going to stay the same, but the stories are going to change. And those keywords are your cue for how to do the test. So you're going to have finding the mean, the median, and the mode. And these, you need to know the formula for it, because what I'm going to do for the mean is I will give you the set of data and I will ask you the mean and I will plug it in as a formula, and you have to choose the correct answer for that to be able to find the mean. In other words, I could say that maybe your set of data is A, B, C, and I want you to find the mean for that. Then the mean is just going to be adding them together. So A plus B plus C over 3 would be the correct choice. So I'm going to look for, do you know the formulas? So make sure you know the formulas. You'll have another question that is just a set of data. You add them together and divide, and you'll get the mean. And it'll be maybe 5 or 6 numbers, but they'll be easy numbers to add together. And you add them together, divide by the total number of numbers you have, and that gives you the mean. So you have the mean in 2 types of questions. I'm going to ask you one using the formula. You're going to have the median in 2 types of questions. You're going to have an odd set of data and an even set of data. And you have to tell me the median based off of the odd set of data and the even set of data. You have 3 questions for the mode. You have to tell me the mode where it's repeated and you have more than one mode. A mode where you only have one, and then you have a question where there's no mode. 1 of 3. You can have 3 types of questions there for the mode. You're going to have one question ask you to find the standard deviation, and you're going to have to fill in the table to do that. I will give you the table. I will tell you the mean. You just have to plug it into the table. And remember, the table has the data. And then the data is the x, and then we have x minus x bar, and then x minus x bar squared, and then you take the sum of that, and you have the square root of the sum divided by n minus 1. And that was our standard deviation. So you have to fill in the formula for that one, fill in the table and do it. Find the variance. The variance is just the standard deviation squared. So you're just going to square your standard deviation. Unusual, you can either use 2.5 standard deviations or 3 standard deviations to check for unusual. You can go either way. It's actually mostly a person's preference who's ever setting it up, but it's the most common ones are 2.5 standard deviations or 3 standard deviations. I will give you numbers that are unusual irrespective of which case you choose, so you'll get the correct answer. Yeah. Unusual? Unusual is you find to be more than 2.5 standard deviations away from the mean or more than 3 standard deviations. People's definitions vary on the fact it varies in our book. So depending on which definition you use, you can use either one of them. You will get the right answer. You have to construct a frequency distribution. This is a table with the classes, the class boundaries, class midpoints, and the frequency. I'll ask you 3 questions dealing with histograms. The first one I'm going to ask you is to find the class width. The next one, I will give you the class width and the data, and I will ask you to construct the frequency table. And then the last one, I will give you the data. I will give you the frequency table, and I'll ask you to construct the histogram. That way, any errors that you make at the beginning don't propagate all through the question. So the histogram question is broken up into 3 questions so that the errors don't propagate throughout. They will be different data for each part of it, so don't get confused about that. It's not going to be the same data. Class width on the first one. Construct the frequency table on the next one. And then the last one, given the frequency table, construct the histogram. So those are the 3 types of questions that we're going to have. You will have a question like number 2. Suppose that the mean and standard deviation of a data set are 3 and 0.5. Find the mean and standard deviation of each of the data sets. So you have, your data set is A, B, C, D, E. Your new data set is adding 1 to each of your data points. So you picked up your data set from here and you shifted it to the right by 1. What does that do to the middle of your data set? It also moves it to the right by 1. So in this case, it's your x bar plus 1, which would be 4. What would it have been if I had subtracted 1 from each data point? X bar minus 1. Yeah. If you pick your data up and move it, you don't change the spread of your data, so your standard deviation stays the same. In this case, S is going to be 0.5. That's when you're adding or subtracting from your data values. If you're multiplying by your data values, the 2 stretches all your data values out. Your middle for that is going to get stretched as well. So it's going to have the same spread. So you're going to have 2x bar, which becomes your 6. And then your S, your new standard deviation, is going to be 2 times your old standard deviation, which is going to be 1. So when you multiply by something, you multiply your mean and standard deviations by that value. Okay, you're going to have one like that on the test. 3 and 4 are being able to write down your sample space. I'm going to ask you for a sample space on the test. On this one, you have the first one is without replacement and the second one is with replacement. So make sure you read the question carefully to see whether you have with replacement or without replacement on the test for your sample space. It changes what your answers are going to be, so be very careful with that. And then number 5 and 6 are also the same, but one of these is without replacement and one is with replacement. When I see the term at least 1, that is the same as 1 minus the probability of none. That's how we calculate at least 1. We do 1 minus the probability of none. When we're looking at drawing a blue and a red ball out of the hat, that's going to be blue first, red second, or red first, blue second, and you have to do both orders for that. And then the last one is 2 blue balls. You just have probability of blue, blue. So that's your hint for number 5. Same hint for number 6. Any questions so far? Okay. Same type of hint on number 6 to calculate those. Number 7, you're drawing out a single ball on it. So each of these is just counting the number of options that happen. Look at number 2. On a single draw, can you draw a red and a blue? No. In that case, your probability is going to be 0. You can't draw both a red and a blue on a single draw. Probability is 0. Probability of red or a blue is going to be probability of blue plus the probability of red. And you can do that in either order, but you're going to add your 2 probabilities together. Then you're going to have one dealing with tables. This one, I just put some information into a table about a nursing program. Notice on part A, it has the term given that, and it says given that the student is female, that means that you're living in your female row, and then you have to find the probability that the student will graduate. That's going to be graduate with a BS degree. So that would be the 180. So for that one, you would have the 180 over the 250. And you're not going to simplify these answers. You're just going to write them down. You don't have to put them in decimal form. You're not going to simplify them. Just write them down. You make me do more work if you try and simplify it or put it in decimal form. Just write it down on the paper. I just want to see it written down. You're going to just be reading all your probabilities off the table. Number 9 through 11 here are the different counting rules. We have the multiplication rule, combinations rule, and permutations rule. So make sure you can identify when to use each of those rules. What I'm going to do on the test is I'm going to just give you the formulas for those rules. And so if it's a multiplication rule, I'll give them all multiplied out for you. If it's a combination rule, I'll say the C with the N and the R on it. If it's a permutations, I'll say P with a subscript N and R on it. So you don't actually have to calculate those on your calculator. You can just tell me which formula you would use for it. That's what we're looking for. That's 9, 10, and 11. And then number 12 is asking you to explain standard deviation and mean. This is, you're going to have a question like this, but the way it can change is I can change that to be other definitions. This is just, do you know your definitions for the mean and the standard deviation? I could ask you the same thing about a statistical experiment or any of the other definitions that we've had. So study the definitions from the class worksheets. And you're going to have a question that's dealing with the definitions from that. So one question dealing with the definitions. So I will ask you to tell me what does something mean, and you have to tell it to me. And then number 13, this one is like our Litchfield one on the classwork. And homework, we also did one like that on WebAssign. I give you some basic numbers and then I ask you some probabilities that have a given that in it. And so you have to know the formula for the given that. But it's just like those. And the last one listed here is the extra credit. The extra credit you're going to submit on Gradescope before the start of class on Wednesday. And it is to support the belief that Saturday is a Sabbath. That's the belief, Seventh-day Adventist belief. Support that belief. 2 to 3 Bible verses. No more than 3 to 4 sentences. I don't want the entire Adventist fundamental beliefs for that. That's a chapter. I want 3 to 4 sentences, 2 to 3 Bible verses. So make sure you have your 2 to 3 Bible verses in there. You do not have to copy and paste the Bible verses in there. You can just reference them if you want. If you want to copy and paste them in, that's fine. You can do that. But it's very, very short. Type it up, save it as a PDF, and submit it on Gradescope before the start of class on Wednesday. And that's the extra credit to our test on Wednesday. Here again, if you want to do well on the test, you need to make sure you can do the review without your friends, without your books, without your notes, and without your tutors. If you need any one of those to get through this review, then you're not going to get through the test. The test has all this information that's on the review here. There isn't anything you can skip on the review and say it's not going to be on the test. It's all on the test. You have to be able to do it all. So that means you're going to have to do it multiple times if you need to be able to do it inside of 50 minutes on the test. You have 50 minutes to do it in at the test, and that has always been enough time in the past, so make sure you can do that. Of course. You can use a calculator on the test set up so that you will not need a calculator. So you can use any little cheapy calculator, and I'll have some regular calculators. I'll bring some regular calculators to the classroom to borrow if you forget a calculator. Yeah, you can use that. What? Yeah, you can use any calculator of your choice. You cannot use your cell phones. No cell phones. Don't plan on using your cell phones on the test. Also, once you start the test, you can't leave until the test is over. If you get up to leave for whatever reason, I'm taking your test from you. That's the end of the test. So make sure you've got your drink of water, gone to the restroom, all of that before the start of the test. You're going to want to be here for the length of the test and then leave at the end of it. Once you need to leave in between, you're done with the test before you start out to do the class. Any questions?
The project assignment, how did you want to do the outlier?
You check and see if they're more than 3 standard deviations away from the mean above or below. Then you just delete the entire row of. I've heard people say that they don't think there are any outliers. I haven't made the key yet, so I don't know. But if you don't think there are any outliers, then just tell me no outliers on number 8. That's fine.
You said you delete the entire row.
I said we don't want the height of the Okay, we're done for today. We have more questions later. The project is printed on grade scope by 10 o'clock tonight, guys. Submitted as a PDF.
So cool.
Okay, so 3 standard deviations above the mean, 3 standard deviations below the mean. Anything between that's normal. Outside of that is an outlier. So if you have an outlier of arm length, then delete that person's arm length and the height. Both. Because they're character.
Okay. And usually you say that outliers just say that these were outliers. And then it's on grade scale.
Yeah, on grade scale.
Thank you.
Okay? It'll actually generate that. If you use the online histogram maker that I put the link for, it'll generate all of that. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah, there's a link. Yeah, just below the first part of the project, you'll have a PDF file, and then below that will be a link for the online histogram maker. It'll say online histogram maker, and you just click on that, and it'll take you to a website. Just copy your data, paste it on the website, and click generate the histogram, and it'll make the histogram for you.
But if you got a grade school,
So you don't have to worry about that.
so your total grade.
Whenever you were, he said we have like boxes. Right? No? Yeah, we don't have it.
Now, everything goes on Gradescope, and you should get emails from,
Yeah.
and that takes you to a link. So if you have any questions about why something got marked off, you can do a regrade request from that link, and then it'll send me an email with your graded paper, and then I can go see what was marked off.
So, for outlier, if we delete the person, delete it, I will have to get it back as well.
Yeah, because they're paired data, we don't want to mess with that pairing of the data. We're going to keep that paired, and when we get to chapter 10, we're actually going to do a scatter plot of the pairing of the data. Yeah.
You already did that. Okay, so if I already did it and submitted it like sort of incorrectly, how do I
Don't
like
worry about it
resubmit
this
it?
time, just go fix it in your data file.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
So we have to
continue on.
redo it again?
Yeah, don't redo it,
Okay.
just leave it the way you have it for right now, and fix it in your data file so that when we get to chapter 10, it'll be correct. You're welcome.
So, outliers,
Well, so your standard deviation is required, so you have to do 3 times that, which would be 36. So you're gonna add 36 and subtract 36. Any data values that are between there are normal. Any that are not between there are going to be unusual. So you'll find a range and you'll be able to sort through. You can hurt your computer.
Okay, so you would just multiply the 12 by 3 and then add that.
So the 59, yeah, it's almost 60, so 36 and 60 would be, 99, so you're looking for values greater than 99 or smaller than 127. So you can skim through it, but it's not that hard. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I want them to have the same number of classes.
With the variable that,
When you guys sorted it, that's what you sorted the data though, or just get the female out. Did you just sort the first column, male and female, and not sort the others? Because if you